Well, year on year, Nigeria spends billions of dollars on solving its hydra-headed security challenges. From terrorism to kidnapping, almost every state in the country has been affected. The Northeast remains the most troubled region, with the Northwest and North Central also badly hit. Casualties have not been limited to ordinary citizens, as leaders, traditional rulers, and security agents have all tasted a part of this bitter pill. On VSA Today, we will review Nigeria's security sector in 2021, look at the problems and suggest possible solutions. Welcome to the show. I'm Sulaiman. Well, since 2009, I beg your pardon, Nigeria has had to deal with one high-profile security case or the other. This heightened in the last decade, with almost every part of the country badly affected. Northern Nigeria, however, has been the most disturbed of the regions, with terrorism, kidnapping, and banditry holding sway in the Northeast, while school kidnappings and killings are problems in the Northwest. Farmer-herder clashes, kidnappings, and killings are the North Central's foremost issues, with southern Nigeria also recording pockets of security upheavals. There were jailbreaks in some parts of the country, and in some other battles, some unknown gunmen, attack that grew in popularity during the year, also burned some police stations and were behind the loss of many lives. The police, now better in conduct with less extrajudicial killings or manhandling reported, still have a lot to prove. Bribery and corruption in the police force is still an issue, and innocent Nigerians are still held for the wrong reasons. Many deaths still go unreported in the country, with some states badly affected, yet hardly spoken about. Now, joining me to look at this today on The Square is Dr. Abdurrazaq Balogun. He's the Executive Secretary, Lagos State Security Trust Fund, and Ambassador Oamien Roy Okhidievbie, who's the Director of Media Coalition of Concerned Military Veterans. Gentlemen, it's good to have you both with me live in the studios, and compliments of the season.
Thank you.
Now, let's start by first looking at Nigeria's economic capital, which is Lagos, where we are, and you are the man who's saddled with the responsibility of coordinating, persons and personalities from across sectors to see how everyone can be a part of it, talking about security. You know, they always say security is everybody's business.
Right.
And for a doctor to be doing this, let us know how it's been like in the year 2021, security-wise in Lagos.
I think 2021, almost coming to an end now, has been quite significant for us in Lagos. We've also experienced some of the challenges of our country, knowing full well that Lagos State bears, the whole weight of Nigeria. But I think we have come out of the challenges we had in 2020. We have left that behind us. We have moved forward. And you'll find out that sometime in June of this year, we made a very huge contribution to our security sector in Lagos State, just in a bid to ensure that safety and security continues to, hold sway in Lagos, because we realize that without an adequate and robust security, the state cannot prosper. And you know that whatever happens to Lagos affects the whole country. So I think 2021 has been pretty much significant for us in Lagos. We have tried as much as possible to keep the state safe. We've had our challenges, but we have surmounted them. And I think we're moving on and we've put a lot behind us.
We'll come back to you, because when you talked about the challenges which the state has been able to surmount, on top of that, some of the key things. First, some of the infrastructure put in place that the state lost during the NSAS protests of 2020. We'll come back to see how the state is still rebuilding.
Right.
Because not too long ago, we saw you and your team giving an update of what you've been doing so far in Lagos. Ambassador Okhidievbie, You're a veteran. By the way, we must say at this point in time, let's first of all honor the veterans, especially the fallen ones. A lot of times people sleep, walk the streets without even knowing. And it was Dr. Balogun on the day when he was talking about security and the police commissioner. They spoke about the sacrifices people give for us to have a peaceful society. Before I let you dig deep, tell us about the veterans and what they're doing, because it's a whole week of activity leading to next year as we honor these great Nigerians.
Okay, so I would like to teach you a phrase.
Go ahead.
Say, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm surprised that you brought it up. I was thinking we'll just go into this because people don't care. And I was just discussing with Doctor earlier. So many young men, 18, 20, they leave their states of origin. They get an identification letter from local government. They go to the federal and they get enlisted in the military. They leave the military at the peak of their entering their old ages. They have left all juvenile delinquencies, opportunities to gain career growth system and everything, and they come back to their state. The state does not even welcome them to say, okay, take a welcome certificate that you didn't commit any crime, you are not involved in coup plotting and all that. So fine, because the federal government also, who is the father of the states, does not even welcome you. Veterans are in dilemma right now because when they come out, they are having post-traumatic stress disorder. So many of them are meeting this challenge of getting employed, mixing up, demilitarizing into the society, and there's no accommodation. So you stay in a place where you are not used to paying rent before, and now you need to pay rent, and your pension is meager. There is a 24 months arrears outstanding for minimum wage that even Blessed Fashola, the governor of Lagos State has cleared. So many state governors have cleared their states.
And it doesn't
they are even giving benefits.
And that's not their responsibility, I guess.
No, yes. And you see, so the federal government itself that have even had opportunities to get some foreign loans, that have even been disbursing loans for welfare and other things, have not disbursed any amount to capture the 24 months outstanding for veterans. Then there's something they call the debarment allowance. Like you are a veteran journalist right now. You want to leave the journalistic trade, and we say don't use the skills against the country. As a military man, I was trained in bomb disposal, paratrooper, airborne, all kinds of weapon handling, sniper, jungle warfare, and all that. Now I'm out. The Constitution says pay him a debarment allowance. So as he goes out, he can't go and train militants, he can't go and train terrorist groups, he can't even mix up with cultists and say, I'll teach you how to shoot. You are restricted once you are paid the debarment allowance. It's not paid. It's not paid to, they now have to bring up some people. So a lot of disgruntlement. So the guy now goes out, mixed with the society, now gets hypertensive, all this kind of liver, kidney problems and all that. Then he goes to the hospital as a retiree, Defense Health Hospital, eye problems because of the hazard of the job. Then he wants to check his eyes. They give you 3 eye drops. They say, oh, we have 1. You need to buy 2. When I went for my own eyeglasses before I just traveled to US, I knew what was happening because I paid for my frame. I got my frame myself, and the lens will come. They'll tell you have 5% discount or something. So then you see these elderly people that cannot get that glasses. You see them that they can't treat hypertension, diarrhea, arthritis. Those things are not covered in the medical. So there becomes a problem. The problem now is I cannot mix up with the society. I cannot sustain with my salary up to senior officers level, I'm telling you. Then I cannot pay my children's school fees because I didn't get married on time, because I was in one front line or the other. Now finally at old age, I'm being left behind younger boys. Then I get married. My children are still small. I'm now tackling how to pay school fees.
You know, it's a whole lot on the plate. And just when the announcement went out that we'll be talking about security, a whole lot of people thought that we'll just look at security from the perspective of, you know, what exactly are we doing? And one of the messages that came was from a colleague. I'm sure she should be watching now. And she said, ask doctor. I heard that he said to kit an average policeman is about 13 million. I said, no. I said, I was there. He said 3 million. He said, oh, you were? I said, yes, I was there. So now it goes back to some of these things you're raising. Now, let me come back to Dr. Balogun before we come back and start, you know, talking about this. Now, security for 2021, I want to look at it from the perspective of welfare. He started it off, and it will make a good discourse for people to understand what these people go through, the kind of sacrifices. Now, take us through what the Lagos State government is doing. Okhidievbie just reminded us that some states have been able to clear what wasn't even the business of the states, paying, you know, arrears owed the veterans. So help us here. For security, what can states do, given the Lagos example?
First of all, we must realize that, citizens must realize that issues of security is a federal preserve. And these agencies run their own budgets. They have their budgets. They go for appropriations at the National Assembly, and they are given their budgets. But what we see over time is that the state government, particularly Lagos, has virtually taken over almost every aspect of their welfare and their well-being. You know, when we speak about security, people look at it from the hardware, what they can see physically. And there's a lot more. I mean, when I spoke about, I'm happy you raised that matter. A lot of people came, you know, they even sent me pictures showing me that, is this what 3 million costs? I said, you misconstrued me. Yeah. I said, to kit one police officer, it will cost a modest 3 million naira. What are we talking about? They don't see the most mundane things like raincoats and rain boots. What do you want them to wear during rainy season? These are gears they need to perform their functions. Is Nigeria so not developed for us to have a police officer that would command respect, that would command dignity, that would have some sense of responsibility and you know, confidence to approach citizens? But what do we have? We have police officers who do not have enough wherewithal to work. And so in Lagos State, what we have done is that, particularly the Security Trust Fund, every year we try to provide at least 2 sets of uniforms. Every year? Yes, with all sets of accoutrements, for the IRS. Because the IRS has a workforce of about 2,000 men and women. We cannot afford to kit 33,000 police command. Like I said, if it takes you 3 million to kit one person, then it will take you about 99 billion to kit 33,000 people. So what we do is that the IRS, which is somewhat like a creation of Lagos State, we try as much as possible to give them 2 police uniforms with all their accoutrements, with rain boots, raincoats, and everything like that. To the extent that we've tried as much as possible to even something in the time past, we've even provided guns and ammunition. But again, that's not our preserve, really. Because even there's a difference. You may have the resources to procure these things, but the federal regulations will not allow you to procure them. But what we are saying is that Lagos State government realizes that for you to have an efficient system, you must have men and women who are willing to lay their lives for us. So what do? We create a good welfare system for them. We give them stipends. We provide assets for them. We give them stipends on a monthly basis. We have an insurance system. If you lose your life in the line of duty, you're paid 10 million naira per family. We've done that. Last year, we paid about 70, 80 million. This year, we've paid close to about another 90 million to different families that have lost their lives in the line of duty. These are the things that we have done and we are doing in Lagos State to ensure that these men and women, you know, give their best to the citizenry. But it's way more than that. I mean, what we are doing, we hear a lot of accolades. People tell us we're doing great jobs. Well, we think we can do more. How do you send police officers out without bulletproof vests? I mean, these are basic outfits for any police officer to combat crime. So we haven't gotten there. We need to have a system where we have earmarks And these earmarks must be domiciled. It mustn't be something that you need to write to a ministry before it is released, because security issues and welfare is something that's supposed to be spontaneous. And that's why the Security Trust Fund has a system that within 48 hours, whatever request that is made, within 48 hours we must respond.
Okay, I'll come back to you. You know, love them or hate them. You know, when people talk about security operatives, you need them. And I'll tell you, you know, time was in Lagos. I have friends who say once is ninth time, the only route we take are the routes we know will have security men, you know, present. So the same people that you're trying to avoid. So it comes back to some of the key things you raised. And how do we make it an interesting job? Okhidievbie, help us here. How do we make, you know, it an interesting job to the extent that young people, when they hear or they see anyone who's in service or out of service, it will be an interesting and enticing profession to say, oh, I want to be a doctor like Dr. Balogun, or I want to be a military officer like Okhidievbie. What should we be looking at?
You see, let's look at why we need agencies. In the first place, you have terrorism, you have kidnapping, banditry, cybercrime, ritual, and all that.
That is
all
part
the
of it
crimes
as well.
that you need all of these people for. You have international espionage, so you need the NSA, the NIA, the DSS. You have boundary and border porosity, so you need the immigration to make sure they monitor people's movement and all that. We need a lot of things to protect. Now, who will take those jobs? What we are doing now is reactive. What are we doing? We just tell people all the things he's speaking about. What if those men don't care for it? What if they don't have the duty care to keep those things? And after a while, it's stolen, it's thrown away, it's lost, it's dilapidated, and they say, hey, it's a fraud. They gave 3 million, it's a fraud. You know, but when you look at the institutions, the DSS, the immigrations, the police, the army, the military, the navy, the air force, then you look at the personnels, then you look at the availability of technology and logistics. These three things must go together. In the institution that we're talking about, the Police Service Commission and the Office of the IG, they are at constant loggerheads for promotion, for recruitment, for XYZ. If you look at the defense itself, it's just recently that you are seeing the Air Force responding quickly to where they say there are bandits in one forest to clear them off before the military comes in. This correlation was lost for a while, you know. Then you look at the personnel. Go and check all the training schools, sir. You see, let's say what we are doing is reactive. Check the curriculum of the training schools. Check the entry requirements. Okay, now you are the current person that needs to employ. I send you 10 people, he sends you 10 people. From ambassador. Hello, what's your name? I don't know my name. Oh. And he wants to get into the DSS. Who brought this guy here? It's ambassador. Can you call him to send us someone? He says it's his wife's younger brother. Oh, teach him now. Can't you teach him? So you can now see the personnel available to deploy this encouraging efforts. It's faulty. It's faulty. Then you look at the training institutions, the kind of instructors that you have there. He's a friend of one of our body, ASIS, you know, and we're talking police, and I said, can't we write to the police institution and say, can we come and do graduating courses for them? Just voluntary. I can come and do a 2 weeks run. And that will maybe embellish a feeling in the guy when he comes out and says, I spoke to ambassador. Shouldn't be doing this. You know, so the instructors, the curriculum, the training schools, you know, Channels did one this thing the other time. I think you were involved in so many things. Expose. And if you look at the police college, look at military institutions, the depot NA, and all these institutions where we bring out all of these people, can you see the curriculum? Does it interrogate the current dynamics of international security and insecurity challenges? No, it does not. So now the instructors there, can you see? Because we are talking about producing the baby to grow right. If the baby does not grow right, it becomes a faulty adult.
That's right.
And that faulty adult, you can't just pick anybody and give him a smartphone now and say, please, can you just Google where we are going to? You know, I'm still training my driver to use Google. You know, so how many police officers, military officers can use Google, can use the smart technology we talk about? Then you take 5, 6, 7 of them, you take them outside the country, we are going to train them on special forces. The environment, the instructors that train them, the people that command them, the command and control structure, the benefits, 10 million if I lose my life. Mommy, don't be afraid. You get something to help yourself. All of those things, they'll get lost when he comes back. So the deployment of that training becomes a problem. So because he's seeing that there is paucity of care. Now, when we now talk about the technology itself, the technology that we deploy in these our challenges that we face right now, they don't carry the necessary control. Look at data. Okay, if I arrest someone and he said he's a bandit and he's a terrorist or whatever he is, just a fingerprint on a device, it will show his hospital card, his international passport, driver's license, whatever he has, any bank he has opened account number. So all the data we have, are they synchronized? Is it easy for police officers to have a phone number collecting ransom for terrorism and you say you want to shut down the network in the state? Why? Can't you trace the discussions? So, sir, the institutions, the personnel, and the technology, how far have we gone?
That's a big question, which before we leave, you should be able to also give a sense of where we're headed. But, you know, some of the key questions you asked brings us to some of the things Dr. Balogun had said, and it has to do with preventive and proactive security. You mentioned that when you were giving your report, and you said, well, security has gone beyond, you know, reactive. Right. And you also mentioned the phone lines. People should, you know, fingertip, place a call. Let us in on what Lagos is also doing on that. Time was when people, you know, crave for emergency lines. And from what Okhidievbie is saying, you don't have to shut down communication for you to get it right. Instead, see how you can actually, you know, play with same communication to outsmart the criminals. Is that what the commercial nerve center of Nigeria is doing?
I don't think so. I mean, this is what we speak about, that there has to be some form of synergy amongst all agencies. But I think what you find is people working in different silos. You know, most states are constrained. There's a limit to what Lagos State can do as a state. Because we are constrained, you need to have permission or approvals from different federal agencies before you can do whatever you want to do. And so there's a limit to how much you can control even what you assist, you know, in. You know, so you provide this, provide that, yet you cannot dictate how you use some of these things. Because at the end of the day, it's at their behest whether they want to carry out some of these orders or whether they feel they probably know more than you do. Because some of these things we experience in Lagos, in my own little experience, is not something that should be so. If we had, for instance, all our security agencies speaking together, so you're hearing me, I'm hearing you, you're hearing Ambassador. If it's your call, take it. If it's mine, I'll take it. But you don't have that. And then you have this issue of hoarding of information. People want to outsmart this. I feel more superior than you because I'm wearing this sort of uniform. It should not be so. I think the paramount responsibility of our agencies must be to secure lives and property. And whichever way or means that is necessary to achieve that, I think people should ensure that it is done. I think what we try to do in Lagos is that we hold Security Council meetings, and I'm told that Lagos is one of the few states that hold Security Council meetings on a regular basis. It's held every month or every 6 weeks by the governor of Lagos State, chairing that meeting. Since I've been at the fund, he has never delegated that duty. So every 6 weeks is holding meetings with all the service commanders. And then we've also extended with the Immigration Service, NSCDC, because we believe that those ones to have
just the way he highlighted.
Nigerian Prison Service, Nigerian Correctional Service, because we believe that they also have, you know, a role to play. I mean, you imagine there's a prison outbreak now. You know the effect it will be of that in Lagos State. So I think we should emphasize synergy. We should emphasize that the responsibility of all these agencies is to secure lives and property. Like I said, states governments have a very, very limited control, and it's limited. I mean, I was talking to one of my colleagues today, where you assist agencies and you want to take stock of some of those things you donated, and they're telling you that you have to get a permission from the commander to do so, and it's your assets. The asset is in the name of Lagos State Security Trust Fund, and yet I have to take.
Let's speak to us about synergy. Listening to Dr. Balogun, what readily comes to mind is that word synergy, and you've mentioned some of the key agencies, and he's also highlighted that. You can imagine now he's added another one, even the correctional, the one we once called prison service. They're as important as every other aspect of our security. So synergy in the year 2021, has there been an improvement from where we were coming from?
Yeah, there is none. If I see improvements, okay, there is no consistency. Synergy must have consistency before you can get robust trust and cooperation. If we have synergy for one crime that just happened, was it broken down after resolution of that crime, or was it built to a bigger, robust level, where I now say, hey, there's one case, and you say, oh, it went through the water, you are a Navy personnel. In the Navy, we have Marine Police. If you say the Navy, there is Marine Police. In the Army, there is DMI, military intelligence. There is naval intelligence. There is also in the police, there is intelligence units. In the DSS is an intelligence unit. The immigration has intelligence units. So why not say, for safety's sake of dissemination, why not harness the intelligence units of all agencies? Let the footmen and the operational arms listen to the productivity of the synergy. But the challenge there is this: certain persons are loyal to people that are not information is need to know. Intelligence gathering is need to know. If you don't need to know, you are not supposed to know. You are not supposed to know. And there are appropriate time for dissemination, because intelligence has maturity. I may be profiling a situation and it has not matured to the extent where I correlate with this man, because he may truncate it. So, but I can correlate to a higher authority that is aware, that can restrict him not to truncate the activity. Those things should reduce friction. When the army is coming out, the military is coming out, and it needs to correlate with the police. Don't forget that police activity cascades down to the risk parameters. If it's high risk, that's where you're supposed to bring the mobile policemen out. You're supposed to bring them out. When you see high risk situation, just like abroad, you now see the SWAT running. The other police now do perimeter defense for other people not to come into the crisis area, you know, and they churn out everything and they move back to the barracks. So we don't have that discipline. Before you can do synergy, sir, there must be institutions that are strong enough to maintain status quo, to execute penalties when there are violations. How can an army officer and a police officer begin to shoot at themselves just to arrest Wadume? And that situation has not been fully cleared. Now, there are people that died, officers that died, police officers that died. What brought the military into it? Why do men stay alive? What brought the police into it? Where did friction came? Where did information sharing got truncated? You know, then who is to blame?
These are vital questions. And it brings to bear some of the things Dr. Balogun has said. In a case like Lagos, where you actually fund some of these things and you're not even given access to make proper, inventory and even input to see what, because if you don't come in, how do you know what you need, for instance, in the year coming in 2022? So now, let's talk about how we can get the best out of our police officers. And we see what Lagos experienced in 2020. And I saw you and your team from 2020 going all out, speaking to corporate Nigeria in Lagos and every other part of the country to come in rebuilding some of these key things that were lost in Lagos. How has it fared so far? Because I looked at the figures of those who contributed money, looking at the report, and it would seem as if Lagos is still paying the largest amount, to fund the security, a part of the police, the IRS specifically.
Right. I think, and this is the message. First of all, and that's why we do this town hall meeting, to educate Lagosians or Nigerians. And I'll say Nigerians because we all have a stake in Lagos. That you have an initiative that's been on for 14 years. That almost all state governments and even the federal government have replicated. It tells you something is working. And you want to be sure that whatever you contribute is spent judiciously and is spent wisely, and it's not entering somebody's pocket. And so this is what we do when we render our stewardship. But what we found over the years is, because our model is voluntary, you don't find people, taking that responsibility or deeming it fit that let me play my own part. Let's contribute something. We understand very clearly that a lot of corporations do CSR. It could be sports, it could be healthcare, it could be entertainment. But we continue to tell them that without a secure state, in the last couple of days now, if you go around a hotel axis, there's been one concert or the other back to back. And so you employ private security companies, you pay them. Those ones rely upon the police to secure them. And yet, nothing is given back to those ones. So you imagine the amount of assets going into securing those concerts where you have international people coming. The point we're making is that if we had a model like the federal government that is compulsory, we will not be going cap in hand. We would have a much more secure Lagos, because we know what the needs are. We've done the needs assessment. We've commissioned consultants that have done that from the physical to the preventive to everything. We went to as far as looking at, our school system. What do we need in the school system? Of course, most of our schools are porous. Most of our schools don't have any safety protocols, as far as I'm concerned. And we've done all that. We went into the hotels. How many? I went to see somebody 2 days ago, and I had access to that person's room.
Unrestricted
access. That is wrong in any hotel. So there are protocols we have done. We've commissioned people. We have a whole documentation since 2018, 2019, where we pieces every single safety and security aspects of Lagos State in terms of different sectors. And so what we need is resources. And we're saying that you cannot just be relying on few people. And we continue to say there are very few. If you have about 40-something% of Nigeria's GDP in Lagos, and barely less than 0.1% is paying their part, it tells you that people are not just doing anything. And then some people will also make commitments, and you chase them, they don't respond. Some even, try to, abuse you, like as if you're asking for a personal favor. Understand the fact that one is just working on behalf of everyone. So I think it is important for all of us to key into this thing, because we have shown over the years that we are reputable, and what Lagos is doing, the same Lagos you expect them to do roads and bridges, expect them to do schools, expect them to do healthcare. This is a pandemic. There's so many resources. And by the way, the economy of Lagos, and that's a very wrong impression people have. You hear, Lagos is rich. The budget of Lagos for this fiscal year is barely $2.2 billion. For a state like Lagos, 21 million people. If you have $2.2 billion, that's barely about $100 per head. That's barely about 50-something thousand per citizen for one fiscal year. That's not going to do much. Knowing full well that almost all our goods and services are imported, there's devaluation of our currency. One vehicle that used to cost 3 million naira is about 19 million naira now. So when I give the figures of the capital expenditure of the Nigerian police at 572 million for 2020 fiscal year, that could barely buy 30 vehicles for the whole entire country for the Nigerian police.
Well, let me bring you, Ambassador Roy, and you talked about Wadume, you talked about synergy, you talked about truncating, line of security, whether information or that same synergy is very important. And listening to Dr. Balogun, he also mentioned some of the critical infrastructure. He talked about education, our schools, and we're seeing a lot of over 1,000 kidnappings of, talking about just school children in Nigeria. And people are asking questions, what more can the citizens, do? Just as we're asking the country what more it can do to prevent such. Speak to us about kidnappings and cross-border crimes, which are very, very serious ones for Nigeria in the year 2021.
Okay. Yeah. Let's start with the schools, because it will help me to buttress the point I was making about training institutions. Now, if we are talking about training institutions curriculum to help build the mindset of a police officer, that you should be able to run around, raise funds to kids. Now, when you talk about schools, you talk about hotels. In a school, I told people there is a PTA.
So I don't forget you. I also wanted to weigh in on that, because we know that one of the biggest crimes, in Nigeria for 2021 was a citizen of this country who was murdered in a hotel. Yeah. So I wanted to also put that in.
I'll merge it together. Now, schools. If you check the curriculum of schools, you will be surprised that the things that held value has been expanded. If you have schools where we used to have Boy Scouts, I was a Boy Scout. When I was growing up, we'll leave our houses, we'll go to Payne Primary School in Upper Mission Road. Everybody gathered, there's a scout master. If you are small, you are a Cub Scout. If you are a lady, you are in Girls Guide, you are in Brownies. Those things gives you a sense of discipline, military component, it organizes you into patriotic activities. We do street washing, sweeping the streets, and all those things. Now, those things left our schools. It didn't bother us. Then cultism strolled into our secondary and primary schools. It was only in the universities then, and the highest of offense you will see is somebody breaking a bottle. Weapons were not brandished and all that. So when we lost the PTA, being focused on building those kind of things that we coerce. I just got here now and somebody was sending me a message that he's your schoolmate or something. So there are things that they should have done together. They would have done together to make him identify.
As students.
Yes. And wherever he is, I'm proud of him too as a retired military veteran. And he's proud of his mates too. Okay, how many of us today will be so proud to see a boy in the airport that we grew up with sagging? How many of you will be proud seeing them in cultism, terrorism, cybercrime? How many will be so proud? Because we need to go back to schools. We need to start to put them together in communities, identifiable communities. The PTA, I asked, You drive your Benz to the school. You drop your child. There is just one security man at the gate. The CCTV is not recording. If there is, it's not working. The PTA, the school is asking. You are saying the money is too much. And you drive off to your office. There is a biometric control at the front of your office. You swipe in. You are in your office, you see policemen behind, ready with their guns. You see security men doing access control. Your greatest asset is your child. It's in a porous environment. Anybody can walk in and walk out with the greatest asset. And you say it's the school. Just the way we say it's the government. There is a people responsibility quotient. If the PTA sits together, they need to form a smaller circle, which is the security committee in a PTA. Perhaps a police officer attends that school. Perhaps a military man. Perhaps the CSO of XYZ bank. And you need to come together and begin to say, this our access is porous. The environment gives access to a waterway. What do we do to prevent this perimeter from being breached? The other one that happened in Lagos, they poured acid on the cement, on the blocks, and just chip it up and went in and put them in boats and just scale up. Now, when you look at that for schools, you begin to think, who are those that will throw up the red flags? It is those that occupy the space. Who is the school prefect? Who is the school prefect? Who is the head student in a class? What are his responsibilities beyond being a student in a class? You know, because we lost all of those initial responsibility and roles for kids, to give them that maturity, to take charge of the space and say, you can't do that here. You can't smoke here. Now they smoke in our secondary schools. They do shisha. You have seen viral videos with children. Who will escalate it? Who will report it? There is no responsible person there. Now the responsibility is being intimidated by cultism. So which school will expunge the cultists and say, you are out of this school, you are out of this school, and the parents will not come and make phone calls and intimidate the school to return their children back to the school. So it all goes back to discipline, structure, and institutions. Now, if you go to the hotels, I want to merge the hotels with landlords. You know, every area you will see hotels and homes, hotels where people reside. What data do you collect before people can be able to take residence? Even if it's for a night, even if it's for a month, I'm taking a flat from you, you are a landlord, you stay in the area. What data have you collated from me? After that, the ones they do in hotels, do you share it with the nearest area command? And they now say, what's Aledeh doing here? Which Aledeh? There was a radio message from Ibadan. This guy. So the information is just there. One clerk that is poorly motivated is the one saying, writing. I used to tell them, I no go school. I can't write to you. Say, what's your name, sir? I say, Roy, help me write it there. And I just go into my room. Because I know I'm my own security. Now, if we don't have those data, and if we don't share the data to the nearest police command, that means all the hotels in that area are supposed to be having productive meetings with the nearest area command. And mind you, the DSS is supposed to attend that meeting. Because if there is a fallout from the area command, ability to escalate, if there are information the police command does not have and the DSS has, then the immigration is supposed to attend that meeting, because there might be persons there that are not Nigerians. So what ID did he give you to tell you that he's not from Niger, from Cameroon, from Uganda? And if he's from there, is he legitimately staying here? Our country to country, do we have approval for him to stay here beyond this time? What does he do? You know, so we need all of this information. Yes, they try to get it, but they don't share it. Then because the hotelier knows that there is no punishment for default, because you can be a mole from the government regulatory body to just come and try and say you are going to your room and walk in, and you take information that you walked in, then, sir, what stops us from having a camera in front of every hotel, and that camera is with the area command. Inside your room is your privacy. If you can't have it in the area command in the hotel, put it on the street. What stops us from having it to use the viewpoint?
Let me bring in Dr. Balogun.
I'm just matching them.
No, he's also a lawmaker. so we should let our viewers know. Dr. Balogun is also a lawmaker. Once a lawmaker, always a lawmaker. Are you having this conversation with your colleagues, say in the State Assembly, especially in Lagos, of some of these lapses, of a need for them to work a bill? In the state that will, look at some of the key things he has raised, because probably this will also help.
So we have passed, during my time there, we passed a lot of laws. The implementation of these laws, or not implementation now, yes, even what do we say, it's the police that would enforce, the enforcement.
Okay, the enforcement.
That's the word. Enforcement. Do you know that in Lagos there's an anti-smoking law where you are not supposed to smoke at bars, at restaurants, and hotels? But go to all our hotels and all our bars now. They smoke there. There's a law. Anti-cultism, we have the law. During my time, we passed a law where if you commit an atrocity in a school and you're expelled, you cannot find another school to go.
Within Lagos?
Within Lagos, because you're on record.
No, I think I need to stop you a bit here, because another case that happened here in Lagos is of a parent who went into a school to beat up a teacher, and it's amazing that there exists a law in Lagos.
Yes, there is a law. We even have what we call the database of, I forgot the name of that the agency now, where the whole idea is that so that you know that you cannot commit any atrocity and then leave the school and do something else. That's exactly what I've been pushing for since I got to the Security Trust Fund. That I feel that, first of all, the private security companies, they have the largest amount of manpower, more than the police. Yes, of course, the private security companies. We said that yes, we know that we don't have the powers in Lagos State to license security companies, private security companies, but we have the powers in Lagos to create a law to check the workers, to create like an agency to check the security guards, so that we have a database of these security guards, so that if you leave company A, you commit a crime. If you're going to company B, we can profile you. We know your records. You have a license that's probably renewable, so that you first of all, it eliminates quackery. Secondly, you are sure that the man you are hiring has been profiled. These are the proactive steps we take in Lagos State. But there are also so many challenges. You were talking about issues of school hotels. I told you that we have a big compendium. I can give you that copy of that compendium that we held in a hotel for 5 days. We brought people from all walks of life, even from England, Oxford University, to bring down all our different sectors. We went as far as going back down to the local governments. That we remember during our time, there used to be an off and on license. Off license, whatever, at the local governments, at the bars. That if you find, like Ambassador was saying, if you find a man who comes to your beer parlor, who spends maybe 500,000 at a local beer parlor, what does he do for a living? Why is it always there at that place?
Red flag.
The owner of that bar,
red flag. The
owner of that bar has a responsibility to report that man to the authorities, to at least profiling. What does he do? Why is he spending this much money? Or you get an artisan who comes to your house to paint your house, and you tell him that room, you cannot enter that room. That artisan should be able to call law enforcement to say, I've painted this man's house, but that particular room, he has refused me to enter that room. These are ways that you can put everything together. Or you're a security agency, you're a private security company in house number A, and you see something happening in house number B, and you say, no, it's not my business, they didn't hire me in house number B. Have a responsibility to government. So we've done a lot in Lagos State. But you people always say like water pass Gary in Lagos State. We are doing so much. But like I said, the enforcement is not in the purview of the state to do that. And there's so many overwhelming issues in our state. But what we are saying is that if we could all look at what we have done, there's always this, I call it some very subtle arrogance. When maybe a civilian like me is doing something and a man in uniform feels, what does he know? No, sometimes common sense is more than, it's not book. It's not what you studied in school.
Sure.
I don't have any background in security, but my couple of years in the Security Trust Fund, I think I know a lot, because from my common sense, there's a lot I see, there's a lot I speak about, and there's a lot we can achieve. In South Africa, we all know that first responders are the private security companies. Why can't we have a situation where we engage private security companies where all our neighborhoods, they are the first responders, they are patrolling? These are deterrents. Because this is very, very clear that our law enforcement cannot.
Let's close, if we can do this for both of you in the next 4 minutes. And Ambassador Roy, I want you to start off and so that Doctor can close it for us. Just recently, one of the big news from southern Nigeria has to do with the killing of the mother of a former governor. And it comes back to some of the key things. It talks about profiling, domestic. And I know that your company also does a lot of profiling. So let us in on how people can get better prepared for 2022. Just some tips so that we can actually close.
Thank you. I will just close on that is discussion, because incidentally there is an association in Nigeria called the ALPSPN, Association of Licensed Private Security Practitioners in Nigeria. That association reports to the NSCDC, the Civil Defense, via the Ministry of Interior. And in the National ESCO, I am the current National PRO, the Public Secretary. So
we have the man here.
What he's saying now is this. All of those data is proper. But what people fear is the whistleblower being blown a whistle on. Now, the man that sees that someone spent 500,000, who does he report to? Without exposing his identity, then if there is a toll-free line and I am advised to hide my number when I call the toll-free line, then I can begin to generate intelligence. Lagos has the 767 and the 112. Very effective. I've used it. I've trained so many people, even PricewaterhouseCoopers. When I was training them, I called it, put it on speaker. And the lady was responding. I said, I am doing a training, and I want them to see how effective it is. And they sent the RRS to respond. We looked out through the window. We saw the officers. So I said, so why can't you use 767, 112? Your taxpayers' money goes to these things, utilizable. But if you want to escalate that your neighbor, there was screams in the house, and you are sure they brought a girl there, maybe there's ritual activity going on or something, you must have a toll-free line open, and you must have people hide their identity. Because the corruption, which we have not discussed, has eaten deep into so many areas. Then if you look at the ID of a security man, that ID can be done by Lagos State also. It's been discussed up to the Ministry of Interior level, but it has not fully kicked off. Now, when you now come down to what people should do to protect themselves or to look out to security situations, one of it is to have brokered discussions. People must discuss, sir. The streets, the communities with the police, they must have discussions. A lot of interactions. We remove those criminality in whoever the officers of.
Well, I'm afraid,
we must stop.
I'm afraid
we don't have time.
We're out of time, and I'm hoping that in the new year, Dr. Balogun, we should bring you and Dr. Okhidievbie again to talk about security, because security is everybody's concern. And one of the things that excites me is looking at that report, and I saw ordinary citizens who even contributed 1,000 naira towards the trust. Their names were captured there, and I said, hey, I can also have my name here if I can pay 1,000, 10,000. So it's everybody's business. So thank you very much for being such a nice company.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Balogun, and of course, many thanks, Ambassador Roy Okhidievbie. Well, it's a wrap. It's been a fantastic year with you all along here on Village Square Africa. We'll be back again next year. I'm Sulaiman.
God willing.
God willing. Bye-bye.